Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer and welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know of all the board games launching on Kickstarter and Gamefound over the next week. And if you're new to the channel, we do this every week going over all the upcoming campaigns, so if you want to stay up to date, this is the place to be. But before we get started, I do like to go over some news and announcements that I just found out about, and we do have a couple things to go over. The first one is that Gamefound did just announce their Winter Feast collection. I'm not sure what exactly qualifies games to be entered into this feast, but it just seems to be like a bunch of hand-picked games by Gamefound that are going to be launching around the same time, and I do expect these to launch probably sometime early in 2024. But something that I think is really interesting about this is that it's actually going to be featuring the first CMON game ever launched on Gamefound, with the caveat that it was already launched on Kickstarter, and I do think that this is something that we're going to be seeing more and more, because it doesn't look like they made any changes to the actual game or like they're offering anything new. It looks like it's just a copy-paste of that exact same campaign, and why wouldn't publishers want to do this when they've already put all that work into creating this package and they're doing the manufacturing, and getting more sales only increases their margins and only allows them to get more sales. So it does make sense why they would do this, and since Kickstarter doesn't allow you to put the same crowdfunded project on that platform over and over again, they are now moving over to Gamefound to do that instead. I don't know how I feel about all this, and I also don't really know why that is still a rule on crowdfunding platforms. I understand why it was there originally, because crowdfunding was intended to help people get their projects off the ground, and you should only really be getting something off the ground once. And even if CMON or any other publisher didn't take this approach, I've seen it a dozen times in the past where they just add a soundtrack to their game and then they just launch it again on the same platform, and Kickstarter never seemed to have a problem with that either. So really this rule doesn't really make sense to me why it still exists. If they actually cared about whether or not a project was being launched for the first time, then I think these crowdfunding platforms shouldn't allow a project to be relaunched whether it was launched on their platform or somewhere else. I guess I'm just happy that through all these nonsensical rules and loopholes that there are games like this that we do have the opportunity to purchase, and if we're not interested in them, we don't have to purchase them. But my whole point here was just to let you know about this upcoming feast, not to go on a whole rant about how Kickstarter and these publishers operate. And there are other games here that look really interesting as well. Ice is a game that I do have in my collection, and I'm hoping to try it really soon. And it does look like they've made some changes and streamlined the game, so there is some changes for that campaign. And another one that I'm really interested in is The Last Light. This is a game that's been getting a ton of positive reviews, and it looks like they're going to be adding an expansion pack as part of this feast. And then also Feudum is a game that a ton of people love. This is a game that just takes way too long to play for me to be interested in it, but I know a lot of people really do like this game, and I'd give it a shot. I just am not interested in owning it. There's a bunch more here that I might be interested in as well, but I'll have to do more research, and if you are interested to learn about the game, I will be covering these in much more detail during the week of their launch, and of course I will let you know when that is as soon as Gamefound lets us know, so if you want to stay up to date with that, make sure to subscribe down below. I did also mention at the end of last week's video that I wanted to talk a little bit about the crazy pricing on the food chain Magnate campaign, and I do still want to dig into that, but I feel like it's going to turn into a whole other rant that's going to be making this intro way longer than it needs to be. So I will still do that, but I'll just post it up as a separate video, probably around the same time as this video goes up. So if you are interested in that, I will post that very soon. But if you are interested to hear more thoughts on that campaign and its pricing, you can go ahead and check out Alex's channel, which I'll link down below, because Alex did already post a video sharing his thoughts on the matter. And I don't know what's going on with my YouTube lately, but for some reason some of these thumbnails just aren't showing up, but there will be a thumbnail there, I hope, when you go check it out. And I do always like to give a quick shout out to Alex, because him and I do work together keeping track of all these upcoming campaigns so that I can do these videos for you every single week. But then he also puts out a video at the start of each month, letting you know of all the games that we know about so far. And I do think it's going to be kind of funny to watch his video for this month, because most of the games are launching in this first week. December is always a very slow month on Kickstarter, so his video might be unintentionally very similar to this video, and there's humor in that. I do also want to mention that Mike over at Zilla Blitz does put out a video each and every month going over the upcoming war games for that month, and this will include games that both Alex and I do not cover because Zilla Blitz looks at specific crowdfunding platforms that are specifically for historical war games. So if you are interested in those style of games, you'll definitely want to check him out, and I will have a link to his channel in the description below. And that's it for an intro, and we don't have too many games to cover this week, but we do have a few to be excited about, so let's check them out. And the first campaign we have launches on December 4th, and this one's called Colonial 17 to 1800. And this plays 2 to 5 players and takes about 45 to 60 minutes to play. And this one is a historical war game, so you can expect to see this one on Zilla Blitz's channel, so I'm not going to go into as much detail with this one. But this is a strategic card game where players are going to be playing as competing European powers, fighting to maintain their colonial empires. The main powers offered in this game are France and Great Britain, but there will be some other ones that players can play as well. And this is a game that combines Eurogame mechanisms along with your typical wargame mechanisms, where you're going to be doing things like set collection, hand management, and resource production, but then also having direct confrontation between players and recruiting different troops and engaging in area control. The game plays over just 5 turns each, where players are going to be defending their positions and producing and exporting goods in order to earn and spend gold for powerful tactics cards that they can use to get a tactical advantage. Players will be expanding over North America, the Caribbean, as well as Africa and Asia, and players will also be managing their own personal player board in order to recruit reinforcements, acquire different buildings for different effects, and imprison defeated generals that they can sell back to their opponents. Players will also be managing their income on their own personal player board as well. I couldn't find any exact details on how you actually win the game, but this is a game that has multiple paths to victory, which usually means that it does incorporate some sort of victory points with multiple different ways in order to gain those victory points. So I assume the player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins the game, but if you do want to know for sure, you'll have to check it out for yourself, and I will have a link to the campaign in the description below. Also launching on December 4th, we have Tiny Epic Cthulhu, and this plays 1 to 4 players and takes about 30 to 45 minutes to play. And this one is a cooperative Tiny Epic game, and it is also my own personal pick of the week. And I do want to say one thing about this being my pick, because I don't normally pick Tiny Epic games for my pick of the week, and I just want to mention that it's not because there's so few games this week that I'm making this one my pick. I think this game looks fantastic, and it would have had a really solid chance of being my pick of the week no matter which week it launched. And I will explain why I like this one so much in just a second here, but first I'll just give you an idea of how the game plays, because in this game players are going to be working together as asymmetrical investigators, each with their own special abilities, but players are going to be working together to try and send a great old one back to the realm that it came from. And if you're not familiar with H.P. Lovecraft or the Cthulhu mythos, a great old one is essentially a monster that is so beyond our comprehension that just looking at them drives us insane, and they usually come from outer space or have just been hanging out deep underneath the ocean for thousands of years until they just decide to wake up and cause havoc on the world. They aren't all necessarily trying to cause havoc. We might just be in their way, or they might just look at us as ants and not really of any significance to whatever they're deciding to do at the time. But there's also going to be a bunch of these great old ones offered in this game, and they're all going to be coming with their own asymmetrical abilities and special effects, and you only ever use one in a single game, which means that you're going to have quite a lot of variety from game to game. Not only that, but players are going to be playing on this main board here that's made up of a bunch of different locations, and each of these locations are randomly placed, and they are double-sided, and there's even more of these tiles offered in the game, and they each do have different special abilities for any of the players that are currently standing on them. And the way that players actually win this game is by moving around to those various locations in order to translate the Necronomicon page that is located at that location. Once players have done this enough, that's going to be making the Great Old One vulnerable, and you're going to be flipping that Great Old One's card to the other side. That side of the card is going to reveal a bunch of different portals that players are going to have to work together to try and close up in order to banish that Great Old One from the world. If the players are able to do that, then they win the game, but of course the Great Old One and its followers are not going to make that so easy, and the Great Old One's going to be getting more and more powerful as the game goes on, and if the Great Old One ever maxes out its track, either before or after it's been flipped to the other side, all players will lose the game. In order for players to stand a chance against the Great Old One, players are going to be taking turns performing 3 actions on their turn, but at the start of your turn, you're always going to be rotating the spinner located at the middle of the board. And this is one of the things that I really like about this game, because this is a game that makes full usage of each of its components, because Just the one spin of this wheel actually sets multiple things in motion, because whatever location that arrow is pointing at, you're going to be drawing tentacles from a bag, and these tentacles can come in 3 different colors: blue, red, and green. And you might have noticed that each of these locations have 3 different tracks on them matching those colors. Whenever you draw those tentacles, you're going to be adding them to the appropriate track, but if those tracks ever fill up and you need to add another tentacle there, then that's going to be triggering some bad things to happen. But like I said, spinning that wheel has multiple effects, and you don't only care about the location it's pointing at, but you also care about the icon it's pointing at on the actual spinner wheel, because this will have some additional effects which are usually bad, causing you to add more cubes onto the board or do other things that generally aren't great for the players. But that's not all, because you might have also noticed these different colored icons at the top of each location, and these represent the followers of the Great Old One, and whichever one of those is being pointed at by the back of the pointer is actually going to be spawned on the location that the back of that pointer is pointing at. Anytime that a player ends their turn in a location that currently has those minions, that player is going to be going a little bit more insane. And these 3 different colors of tentacles actually represent madness, but in 3 different ways. There's your fear, your rage, and your greed. And what's cool about these is they actually double as resources, and players will be spending these in order to accomplish the different tasks they need to in order to win the game. Just like on the locations, each of these tracks are going to have a limit to the amount of tokens that they can hold. And if you ever need to add a token to a track that's already full, that's going to be triggering your madness to occur, which is going to completely drain that column of any of the tokens on it, which is not a good thing, because like I said, you can spend those to accomplish different tasks within the game. So ideally you do want to be using your actions to spend these before you go insane. But also, if this happens too many times, then your character goes permanently insane and you do lose the game. But the very last thing that happens after you've spun the wheel is that you're also going to be moving the Great Old One's token to the location that the back of the wheel is pointing at. At the start of the game, before the Great Old One's card has been flipped to its more powerful side, the Great Old One just essentially acts as a blocker, preventing any of the players from being able to go within the location where the Great Old One is currently located. If there is someone already located at that location, then they just have to move out of it by the end of their turn. And the different actions that players could perform on their turn are to move to an adjacent location or pick up different tokens at the location that they're located, moving them from the location board onto their own player card. Or finally, they can use an action to banish minions from the location that they're located at. And like I said before, each of those actions will be more powerful if you have more of the associated token on your player card. But there are some other actions you can perform as well, like the location-specific ability, or you can use an action in order to spend resources from your player card in order to complete the Necronomicon card located at the location that you're currently standing at. Once players have deciphered enough of those cards, it's going to be flipping the Great Old One's card to the other side, where players will then start to be able to close up those portals in order to win the game. Once you've gotten to that point, you have made the Great Old One vulnerable, and that's going to allow you to move into the same location as that Great Old One. And this is also going to grant you another action that you can perform on your turn. And this action allows you to roll dice in order to try and close one of those portals, because each of these portals are going to be associated with a different value and a different color. And depending on the Necronomicon pages that you completed, certain colors are going to be easier for your character. So you're going to have to work with your teammates to decide who's going to be trying to close which portals. But essentially, you're going to be using an action and then rolling dice in order to try and get the value that you need in order to close that portal. And if all the portals are closed before the Great Old One levels up, or before one of the players goes completely insane, then they have successfully beat the game. But this is a game that gets harder and harder as the game goes on, and there's a few things to know about how the Great Old One levels up, because wherever their token is on their track, that's going to be dictating how many cubes you draw from the bag each and every turn. And then also, some of the cubes in that bag can be black cubes, and once you've pulled out 3 of those black cubes, that's going to be moving the Great Old One one step further down that track. Not only this, but the further they move down the track, the more of their abilities they gain access to, making them even more difficult. There's a few different ways that cubes can be added and removed from that bag, but you absolutely do not want to get more black cubes added into the bag, because that's just going to be increasing the chance of the Great Old One leveling up. And this is why it's so important to make sure that these locations are not filling up with too many of these tentacles or too many of those minions, because if that happens, that's going to be causing another black cube to be added to that bag. And I just think it's so cool how generally these tentacles are a bad thing and can cause terrible things to happen out on these different locations, but then players are also intentionally adding them onto their own player card in order to level up their actions, and then to also spend them to complete the different Necronomicon cards out on the board. This is just another example of this game fully utilizing its components, with these tentacles coming into play in so many different ways, both good and bad, that the players are going to have to weigh the pros and cons of every time they decide to do any of their actions in this game. And I think this is going to make for a really fun game, and it's the reason that this is my pick of the week. I'm really excited to check this one out and see what other great old ones and Elder Gods make it into the mix. And if you're interested in this one as well, you can check it out. I'll have it linked in the description below. Also launching on December 4th, we have the AdapTabletop, and this is basically a modular system that allows you to lift up areas of your play area in order to give you additional space above and below, or to even just make those spaces a little bit more accessible, or to segregate them from other areas of the table. And this is a campaign that does have limited pledges, and I know that this has been a tactic by a lot of campaigns recently in order to offer limited pledges that aren't actually limited, but they just say that to create artificial FOMO and scarcity around their product, which is absolutely a terrible tactic that I do not agree with. But I'm happy to say that I don't think that is the case here. I'm pretty sure these are genuine limited pledges because they do plan to ship out all this product in January, which means that they do already have it manufactured and ready to go. And I do think this is also important to note because this company also did have issues with shipping their previous campaign, and I know it made a lot of their backers unhappy, with good reason, because it's never nice to have to pay additional fees and charges because something was mismanaged or for things that are out of your control. But I don't think you will have this issue with this campaign, so if you are interested in this one, I don't think you'll have any problems here, but if you are worried about that, you can always go to their past campaign and check out the comment section, or even join one of the many board game discords, and you can probably find someone that did back one of their previous campaigns that can give you their opinion. And I do also have our own Discord linked in the description below. Launching on December 5th, we have Triple Barrel Shotgun, and this is a game that plays 2 to 6 players and takes about 30 minutes to play. And this is based on Texas Hold'em, which means that it is a competitive game, but players are going to be dealt 9 cards at the start of each round, and then each player is going to be dividing their 9 cards into 3 different stacks of 3. You're going to be putting these face down in front of you, but the way that you want to divide these up is to try and create stacks that you think will end up with the best hands as possible, because you're going to be revealing one of these at a time as you reveal the flop and the turn and of course the river. But as those cards are being revealed, players are also going to be drawing ability cards into their hand that they can use to modify the cards out on the table to help themselves or harm their opponents. Once that's all said and done, players are going to be gaining money based on their placement within the round, but then they're also going to be gaining additional money for the hands that they're able to create. The game offers a few different modes of play, but essentially it works similar to poker, where you're trying to gain as much money as possible while simultaneously eliminating your opponents. The player or team that's able to do this wins the game, and if you want to see more, you can check it out. I'll have it linked in the description below. And launch on December 7th, we have the Battle of Versailles, and this plays 2 players and takes about 30 to 45 minutes to play. And this one looks like another fantastic game that has some really interesting mechanisms going for it, because this one is actually a semi-asymmetrical game where one player is going to be playing as France and the other player is playing as the United States, and these players are competing in a battle of fashion. The way the game works is that you're going to be setting up this runway of tiles, with each tile representing a different action that can be performed when the runway model makes it to that tile. Most of these actions are going to allow you to play a card because each player will have their own action deck that they're going to be drawing from at the start of the round, and then playing those different cards to perform various actions. Something that's really interesting about these different runway tiles is that they do also have all sorts of different icons on them. These icons can benefit one player more than the other, and players will be able to modify this runway as the game goes on in order to try and put runway tiles there that benefit them more. Something to note about the action cards is that they're not super easy or free to get into your hand, and you can only really draw them when the model is on the tile that allows you to draw cards. But other than that, these action cards are mostly multi-use, and you can discard these in order to draw additional cards from your deck. There's a few different action cards available in this game, with one of the main ones being the dress cards. Whenever you play a dress card, you can only play it to the location where the runway model is currently located, And also these dress cards are going to come with all sorts of different icons on them that you're going to be trying to combine in different ways, because at some point you're going to be playing a designer card, and the designer card is going to grant you different bonuses or additional bonus actions if you're able to create the combinations of icons that that designer requires. A neat thing about the dress cards is that you can actually play multiple dresses in a single location, and whenever you do that, you're always going to be keeping the topmost icon of the previous card revealed, allowing you to get more icons out in a single location. Players can also use their fashion to attract celebrity cards that they can then play to the Palace of Versailles. And the way that this works is that one side is going to be for the France player and one side is going to be for the America player, and you always start playing your celebrities from your side of the board. Whenever you play a celebrity, you'll get to perform their special action, but then you can also play the location action as well if there wasn't already a card in that location. If your cards are bumping up against your opponents and you go to play another celebrity card, you're going to be removing their card from the palace and then putting yours in its place, and you still do get to perform that celebrity's action, but you just don't get the location action. There's also other cards like event cards that players can play for different effects or abilities that they can use to modify the play area, but at the end of the round there's going to be a few different actions that allow you to play any of your remaining cards face down into a pile in front of you, and you'll be able to reveal those to add up their income value, and depending on how you played relative to your opponent, that's going to allow you to gain some tiles from the Palace of Versailles. The cards you did play do get discarded permanently, so you are sacrificing cards in order to do this, but whenever you gain one of these tiles, it's going to be allowing you to perform its special action immediately. You can only choose from the tiles that are currently revealed, but once you take that tile, all the tiles adjacent to it will be flipped up so that they are then revealed, and then optional choices as well. Players will then be adding up all their victory points and then taking the difference to determine which direction this token moves. The game can end in a few different ways. Either this token moves all the way to the US or the France side, and then in that case, that player would win. Or if a player is able to get all of their celebrities in the bottom of the palace, then they automatically win. But then there's also a specific win condition for each player that only they can pursue, and for France, that's to accumulate 15 flags, and you'll be able to collect these on the different cards and tiles scattered throughout the game. But then the specific win condition for the America player is that they can try and get 6 different dress qualities in a single column. But if none of these conditions are met before the end of the game, then it's the player with the most victory points that wins. And I think this game looks like a lot of fun. I think it's got a lot of neat mechanisms incorporated with it, and I really do like all the multiple ways to win. And if you are interested in this one, you can check it out. I will have it linked in the description below. And that's everything I have for you this week, but don't leave yet because we still got a few awesome giveaways to announce, and these are the easiest giveaways to enter ever. All you gotta do is leave a comment down below. You don't have to like or subscribe or sign up to anything or do anything like that, although I do appreciate it if you do think I deserve it. But the first giveaway we have here is a banger because this one is for Moonrollers and the Dark Matter Moonrakers campaign. And I am a huge fan of Moonrakers. It's been a game that I've wanted to add to my collection for a while now, but Moonrollers essentially compacts that into a smaller and lighter game that's focused more on dice rolling. And if you're not familiar with this game, this is a game where players are going to be trying to complete different missions, but in order to do that, you're going to have to fulfill the requirements of that mission by rolling the dice to get the icons that you need. The catch here is that you can roll and re-roll your dice as many times as you like, but anytime that you do roll, you have to have rolled something that helps complete that mission, and if you don't, then that causes you to bust, and all the progress towards that mission is then lost. Cool thing here is that if you do complete a mission, you'll get to take it into your possession and gain the special ability that it grants. The game continues like this until one of the players completes enough missions to trigger the end of the game, and then players are going to be adding up their victory points earned by completing those various missions. But then players also gain victory points for collecting different hazard tokens that they would have been collecting throughout the game, but these ones are kept in secret. And the thing with the hazard tokens is that if you have the most hazards in your possession, then all your hazard tokens are worth nothing. So there's a push your luck aspect there as well. The new Moonraker's Dark Matter expansion looks like a ton of fun, and it's definitely something that I'm going to be adding into my game when I do add this to my collection, because it just adds more push your luck into this game, which is what this game is all about in conjunction with its negotiation, because the Dark Matter expansion is going to be adding in the Dark Matter cards, and these don't do anything on their own, which means that you don't want to muddy your deck up with too many of them, but they can become quite powerful if you're able to pair them with the appropriate card. A very simple concept that doesn't overcomplicate the game, but just adds in a bit more fun, which is what I love to see in an expansion. And this giveaway is going to be for one of these pledges, but I'm not exactly sure because they did let me know they'd do a giveaway, but they didn't specify which pledge. I assume it's going to be the Moonrollers Collector's Edition pledge, but the best way to find out is to win this pledge yourself. And to enter this giveaway, just leave a comment down below with the hashtag Moon, and you can leave any comment that you like, but if you're looking for something in particular, maybe let us know what crew member you would want to have on your crew. For myself, I'd definitely recruit none other than Chewbacca, because not only is he a loyal friend, but he also loves board games, and that is a great trait to have if you're going to be out in space for extended periods of time. And for the next giveaway, we have a pledge for Gudnak, and this looks like a fantastic head-to-head card battler, and the way this game works is that each player is going to have their own deck of fighters, and you're going to be putting that deck on top of your home base. The whole goal here is to try to defeat your opponent's base first, and the way that you're doing that is by drawing cards from your deck in order to get your fighters, and then you're going to be using actions to put those fighters out onto the board, move them around the board, and fight against your opponent's fighters, or to eventually get your fighters adjacent to your opponent's base, because if you're able to do that, you're going to be causing them to discard cards from their base until that base is exposed, and if your fighter is still there, or if you got a new fighter there, then that's going to be destroying their base, winning you the game. Of course, your opponent's not just going to let you sit there and destroy their base, so they're going to be performing actions to get rid of you, or to issue their fighters out and attack your base. The cool thing with the fighters is that they do come in 3 different types, and they have a sort of rock, paper, scissors relationship, where if you get your fighters in combat with the fighter that's weak to you, then you do have an advantage. And this giveaway is going to be for the core set pledge that gets you the core game as well as all unlocked stretch goals. And to enter this giveaway, all you got to do is leave a comment down below with the hashtag Gudnak. Something that's interesting about the name of this game and the design and how they spell it is that if you flip it upside down, it actually still spells the same thing. It's not exactly a palindrome, but it's close, so if you do want to leave a comment, you can say anything you want, but if you're looking for something in particular, maybe you could leave us a palindrome down there, and that's just a word that's spelt the same forwards as it is backwards. And the next giveaway we have is for a pledge for BB Blast, and this is a head-to-head strategy game where each player is going to be playing as their own character in an airsoft battle. And the cool thing about this is at the start of the game, players are going to be choosing if they want to be light, medium, or heavy. And that's essentially going to dictate some of your stats, but it's also going to dictate the amount of action points you get to spend to purchase different gear or upgrades. Players are going to be using actions to move around on the board and use the gear that they have in their possession in order to shoot at their opponent and hopefully be the last player standing. This is a game that has a really neat mechanism with the way that the accuracy works, because each weapon's going to have a certain value of accuracy associated with it, and then you're going to be combining that value with the distance you are away from your opponent, and then you're going to be rolling some dice depending on those values to determine whether or not your attack is a hit. And this giveaway is going to be for the VIP pledge, and I should mention that this is a print and play game, and this pledge is going to get you access to all the print and play files as well as the STL files if you want to print off the miniatures as well using any 3D printer. This is also going to get you some additional upgrades and maps that will be released throughout the next 12 months, giving you some new maps to play on as well as some new mechanisms to incorporate. And to enter this giveaway, all you got to do is head to the Discord link in the description below, head over to the giveaways channel, and then click the little emoji underneath that giveaway, and that'll get automatically drawn at the end of the week. And for the next giveaway, we have Fire Noodle Eating Champs, and this one looks like a fun little dice game where players are going to be rolling their dice in order to try and match up icons on their different meal cards in order to be the player to complete all their meal cards first. The neat thing here is that you can roll and re-roll your dice as many times as you like, even just rolling a subset of dice. But anytime that you roll one of these blue spicy faces, then that essentially locks that die out of play until you decide to pick up all your dice and roll them all, essentially starting over. This creates a little bit of push your luck when deciding when you want to continue to try and pursue a certain card, or when to do a full reset and pick up all your dice and start over. Of course, there is a real-time aspect here as well, so you'll want to be doing this all as quickly as possible so that you can beat your opponents. And under this one, we're going to do the exact same thing here. Just head to the Discord in the description below, click the little emoji underneath that giveaway under the giveaways channel, and that'll get automatically drawn at the end of the week. And the last giveaway we have is for a pledge for a way of thinking. And this one is a cooperative word party game where each player is going to get dealt a few different cards, with each of these cards having a bunch of different words on them. Players are going to be looking at their cards and then choosing a word from each card that they think have logical connections together. Each round there's always going to be one player as the active player, and the other players are going to be trying to guess all of their words. The player is going to be putting their cards out in front of them with their first and last card revealed. The other players will then be able to discuss amongst each other and try to decide which cards they think will go where. And then after they've done that once, the active player will then be able to put out different road signs in order to give them clues about which cards they might have had correct and the changes that they might have to make. The other players then get another opportunity to try and correct their guesses, and based on how well they did, you're going to be scoring some points towards your collective score. The game continues like this until each player has had a turn to be the active player, and then you're going to be adding up the cumulative score and then determining how well you did based on player count. And just like the other giveaways, just head over to the Discord in the description below, click the giveaways channel, and then click the little emoji underneath that giveaway, and that'll be automatically drawn at the end of the week. Good luck in the giveaways, but now let's go ahead and draw the winners from last week's giveaways. And the giveaways we had was for a pledge for Wasabi, as well as a tote bag from GameToppers, and a giveaway offered from Gameland Games, who does currently have a campaign running for Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. And this campaign looks awesome. I really do think it's a great opportunity to jump in on this game if you're interested in it. But they weren't able to donate a pledge for this campaign, but they still did want to do a giveaway, so instead they're offering up 2 tiny epic games to whoever wins this giveaway. So let's go ahead and draw for that one first. And to draw a winner, we'll use this fancy comment picker, and all these extra names down here are bonus entries for my channel supporters. If you do appreciate this content and you find value in it, I do appreciate any support that you're able to give. And you can find a link to my Ko-fi in the description below, which is basically the same as Patreon, but I did move away from Patreon to this new platform for various reasons, which if you are interested, I did also post a video about that, which you can find in my videos feed. But for now, let's go ahead and draw those comments and draw the winner. And the winner of the Tiny Epic Games is John Dosa, who is one of our supporters over on Ko-fi. So congratulations, John. I'll reach out to you and let you know that you won yourself a pledge for a couple Tiny Epic Games. Now let's draw for the GameToppers tote bag, and we're going to do the exact same thing here, except for I removed the extra entries because this one is only offered in Canada. I don't really have a good way to filter out the extra entries based on location. So let's grab those comments and draw the winner. And the winner is Miranda Robinson. Congratulations on the win, Miranda. Just email me at adam@shelfclutter.com and I'll get that tote bag sorted out and shipped your way. And last but not least, let's go ahead and draw for the Wasabi pledge. So we're going to do the exact same thing here. Added the sushi hashtag. Now let's just go ahead and grab those comments and draw the winner. And the winner of the sushi pledge is, I still don't know the proper way to say this, Recycle Rishu, you win. Congrats on the win. I'll reach out to you and we'll get that pledge all sorted out. And that's everything I have for you this week. There probably still will be a few games offered throughout the month, but I think it's really going to slow down. And even though we only had a few games this week, for whatever reason, it still took me just as long to film this video. It's like the more time I have, the longer I take. I don't know what's up, but maybe I've been doing this too long without a break, and hopefully the holiday season clears that up. Either way, I will be posting something, and maybe I'll take this extra time to work on some of those videos that I have had in the queue for a while now, but just haven't had time to work on. So I'll probably have some special videos in the weeks to come, or maybe I'll just work on them over the holidays and then post them in the new year. But if nothing else, I'm really excited to have some extra time to play some new games here. I have a bunch of games that I still need to open and sort out and get to the table. I've already spent a ton of time getting Oathsworn sorted out and ready to go, so I think I'm going to try and rope in some of my friends for that. Let us know if you have any exciting plans over the holidays, board game related or not, but either way, I hope you all have a fantastic month. I'm not going anywhere. Like I said, I still will be posting something, but until then, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full.